Hello, this is Professor Budwell, and in this video, I'm going to give you just some very basic instructions to help you succeed in creating a good IRAAC in your classes. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, the IRAAC format is composed of these several different aspects. The first is the facts, which I know is not in the acronym, but it's a very important part. The issue, the rule, the analogous case, the application and argument, and the conclusion. And we're going to go into each one of those. So first, the facts. Remember, you want to try to keep it as simple as possible. Look at the facts that the court considered important in making their decision. Focus on what brought this case to court in the first place. Now, you want to be very, very careful in the facts section to not include what happened in the lower courts. That's typically procedural history. Now, in most of your assignments that you have in this particular class, you are going to be provided with them. Now, that's certainly not true for all of your assignments. Now, be aware this can be a two-edged sword. I've had students in the past who have failed to copy and paste the facts into their assignments, and that's a very easy way to lose 10 points. So here's a good example of some facts. We have, and by the way, Joy is the name of my wife, and she would never do this. But we have Joy, who was charged with breaking curfew. We have the time that she came home, where she had been, who was at the place where she was, and the fact that she had contacted her parents. Now we get to the issue. So the issue is basically the question that the court is setting out to answer. Now, when forming an issue statement, it's usually best to try to keep the issue as narrowly tailored to the case as you can. So don't say, and we'll get into this when I give you an issue sample, but in the facts that I just gave you, don't say whether curfew is appropriate at a certain time. That's much too general. But rather, keep it very simple to the case, whether Joy broke curfew. Now we get into the rule. Now, the rule is the legal standard that the court is going to use to answer the legal question that was posed in the issue. Now, in this class, in just about every assignment that you have, you're going to have a rule, and you're also going to have a standard on how that rule is applied to the facts. So let's take a look at this. For our situation with Joy, we have this rule that to determine whether curfew has been broken, courts consider whether the defendant arrived home at a reasonable time under the circumstances. Now, a reasonable time under the circumstances is a fairly broad concept, so you can see that we have the standard for determining what is a reasonable time under the circumstances. And in this situation, they consider whether where the defendant was, who they were with, whether it was a school night, and whether they communicated with their parents. Now, after you've entered the rule, you'll have a section called analogous case. Now, in all of the assignments that you have in this particular class, you will be given the analogous case. And by that, I mean you'll be given the case itself. In your very first assignment, we'll put together an analogous case section in the brief for you. But in all of your other assignments, you will have to prepare an analogous case section yourself. So in this section, you're going to be describing a case that you will either be comparing to the facts that we've given you or contrasting them. Now, a strong analogous case will contain the following elements. It has an opening that summarizes how the court in that case applied the rule to the facts, and it will have the facts that the court considered in making that determination, and a good conclusion that reiterates why the court held the way that they did. Now, and this is where I've seen a lot of people lose points. In both your opening and your closing sentences in this section, you're going to want to be really using some strong language from the rule. Because remember, the rule is the standard that we're coming back to, and that's how we show our reader how the facts are relevant in this analogous case. So let's give you a sample. In case A, and this is just a hypothetical, the court determined that Anne, who is my cousin, and I can assure you she would not break curfew, that she had not broken curfew because she arrived home at a reasonable time under the circumstances. So right there, you can see that I used language from the rule in the opening. And then we go into the facts. She had arrived home at midnight after studying with a group of friends at a local library on a Saturday night. A librarian had been present in the library. Anne had texted her parents and let her know that she would be late. Therefore, the court held that because she had arrived home at a reasonable time under the circumstances and thus had not broken curfew. So again, you can see that I brought us back to that. It's what's called our phrase that pays. The reasonable time under the circumstances. And then I get us also back to the original thing that we're considering, whether or not curfew had been violated. Now we get to the big section, and in most of your assignments, this is going to be where you can really either gain or lose a lot of points. In this section, you're going to be making an argument that your case is either similar enough to the analogous case as to merit the same result, or that it is different enough that it merits a different result. Now, you'll be instructed in your assignment which position you are to take. So you won't choose between one or the other. Now, a strong application section will contain, and I just realized a typo, the following, a strong opening that describes what you will be arguing, a detailed comparison with the facts of the analogous case, and a strong conclusion that reiterates, according to the rule, why you are arguing the way that you are. Now, again, in your opening and your closing sentences to this, you want to go back to that language from the rule to help show your reader why all of these things are relevant. So let's take a look at this. The defense will argue that Joy did not break curfew because she arrived home at a reasonable time under the circumstances. So again, there's that language from the rule that we keep going back to. Now let's jump into the comparison. Like Anne, who was at the library studying with friends, Joy was studying with a friend at their house. Although the structures were not the same, both Anne and Joy were being supervised. So you might remember Joy at the house she was, there was a parent there, and Anne was at the library where there was a librarian. Additionally, neither Anne nor Joy was out on a school night. And Anne was out on a Saturday night and Joy was out a Friday night. Now, okay, I know there's Saturday school, but generally speaking, we're going to pretend that Saturday and Sunday you don't go to school. And finally, both Anne and Joy attempted to contact their parents to let them know that they will be home late. So you remember when we look back at the rule, these are the factors that the courts considers. And we looked at them in each of the cases. And so we come to our conclusion sentence. Based on these circumstances, the court should hold that Joy arrived home at a reasonable time. Gosh, I should have put under the circumstances in there, and therefore was not guilty of breaking curfew. So you see, again, we go back to that language from the rule. And now we have the conclusion section. Now, in this section, you're going to begin with a clear but not certain prediction of how the court should rule. So should is a very good way to open this. You don't want to say a court will rule a certain way because it's always possible they won't. And then you want to briefly reiterate some of your facts that support this. Now, it's also very important, do not deal with the analogous case in this section. That's what your previous section is for. In this one, you're just giving us a brief summary of why the court should hold this way. So here's a good example of this. The court should find that Joy was not guilty of breaking curfew. She had been studying with a friend under the supervision of her friend's mother. It was not a school night, and she attempted to contact her parents. Under these circumstances, she arrived home at a reasonable time. So you see, we have language from the rule, and we have a brief reiteration of the facts without talking about the analogous case, and we began it with a clear but not certain prediction of how the court is going to rule. So hopefully all of this helps you in preparing a successful IRAAC. And remember, you are encouraged to submit rough drafts prior to the due date. Thank you all so much, and God bless you.